What has been your key to moving so fast?
In the beginning, the competition against other people that would drive me, because that competition brought me to a level that I didn't think that I would ever achieve or never even really conceptualize.
How does a Marine Corps veteran go from military service to building a multi-million-dollar empire in the insurance industry? Today, I sit down with a man who did just that.
I had seen my dad, to him making six figures in insurance. My thought was always, if they can do it, why can't I do that? Nobody wants health insurance until they're sick and dying, and then they need something to pay the bill. But they wanted dental insurance.
Justin Brock started in the U.S. Marine Corps, but after nearly a decade of service, he made an unexpected pivot: insurance. Taking over his father's brokerage, he scaled it into a national powerhouse. He didn't stop there, built GoGuru Pro CRM, and in 2024, sold his businesses for over $70 million. But money was never the goal. Impact was.
It was always the vanity product that I sold. And that ad, it changed my entire philosophy on the internet. If you just try a bunch of stuff, eventually you can find a honey hole like that. A lot of people think to make money on social media, you gotta have 1 million followers. I would venture that you could have 15,000 if they're the right following. Your work in quantity of days is making grand strides towards a goal than you can possibly fathom within that individual day.
From writing Purpose After Service, from Marine to Millionaire, to mentoring entrepreneurs, Justin's mission is to help others achieve financial freedom. Welcome to the Justin Brock Story.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network, but HubSpot doesn't just have great podcasts. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a builder, they've got your back. Now, why is that important? Because if you're building anything, you know that marketing in 2025 is absolutely wild. Now, why is that important? Because you know if you're an entrepreneur, if you're building anything, marketing in 2025 is wild. Savvy customers spot fake messaging instantly. Anything AI generated, they sniff it out. Privacy changes make ad targeting a nightmare, and everyone needs more content now than ever. And that's why you have to have HubSpot's new marketing trends report. It doesn't just show you what's changing, it shows you exactly how to deal with it. Everything's backed by research, but focused on marketing plays that you can use for your business tomorrow. If you're ready to turn marketing hurdles into results for your business, go to HubSpot.com/marketing to download it for free. A huge shout out to Lingoda for supporting today's episode. Now, if you're ready to master a new language, Lingoda is the online language platform trusted by over 100,000 students worldwide. Lingoda offers live classes with real teachers available 24/7. You can choose from German, English, business English, French, Spanish, or their newest edition, Italian. What sets Lingoda apart? The smallest class size in the market. It's just you and up to 5 other students. Or if you want, you can go one-on-one for personalized attention. Their native level teachers don't just teach language, they share culture too, and you'll speak confidently from day one. With Lingoda's flexible scheduling and proven curriculum, students report being able to navigate real conversations in weeks, not years. And if you're using Lingoda for business, their CEFR aligned courses ensure that you're learning internationally recognized language standards that employers value. Between sessions, you're going to reinforce your skills with downloadable materials and bite-sized practice exercises. And all Success Story listeners, they put together a special deal. Try Lingoda free with 3 group classes or 1 private class. Plus, you save on any course with my link, try.lingoda.com/successstory and code SCOTT25. Don't miss this chance to transform your life through language learning. Today's episode is brought to you by Vanta. Now, listen up. This matters for your business. In today's digital landscape, security isn't optional, it's essential. Without it, deals stall, sales cycles stretch on, and scaling becomes very difficult. Now, why? Because investors, customers, and partners all expect businesses to demonstrate strong security practices before they commit. If you can't prove trust, you lose opportunities. So whether you're a startup founder trying to land that first big client or an established company scaling your security program, Vanta helps businesses of all sizes prove that they're trustworthy by automating compliance across 35 frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, the exact certifications your prospects are demanding. Here's why you need to pay attention. Vanta gives you back precious time that you're currently wasting on compliance. Their platform automates up to 90% of the tedious compliance work. It helps you respond to those endless security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and it connects you with experts experts to get your security program running immediately. The results speak for themselves. A recent IDC report found that Vanta customers achieve over $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. So you're going to join over 10,000 global companies like Atlassian, Cora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. And don't miss this. For a limited time only, my listeners can get $1,000 off Vanta. That's real money back in your pocket. Visit vanta.com/Scott right now before this offer expires. That is VANTA.com/Scott. You went from Marine Corps veteran to selling a $70 million insurance business in 10 years. What has been your key to moving so fast?
I actually feel like, knowing what I know now, I guess everybody would start there. If you started there, it'd be a different answer. But knowing what I know now, I feel like it kind of moved slow. Like most of that progress was made in the last 5 years. And even as that 5-year window went on, it was increasingly more and more and more. A lot of that is because you develop this confidence in, slowly in what you know, as well as, attaining, new information. But I have to say from the beginning, the thing that made me not settle on my initial goal was just to make, like I said before, 60,000. I was like, I got to replace my Marine Corps income. And then, if one day I get to 100,000, that would be just glorious. That was my thought. But what happened was I entered a space and quickly would find people to compete against. In the beginning, that was individual agents that I wanted to make sure I dwarfed their production. And then that became agency owners that had more people working for them or that they had recruited. And then after that, it became kind of marketing organizations that had multiple recruiters under them. So not to make it sound too much like a pyramid scheme, insurance, I always say, is the oldest multi-level marketing or network marketing, vertical. And, but anyway, it was really in the beginning, the competition against other people that would drive me. And then it was the realization at different breaking points that something else was possible, because that competition brought me to a level that I didn't think that I would ever achieve or never even really conceptualized. Like the idea of making $250,000 a year as a personal income was revolutionary. And by the time it happened, all I kept thinking was, wow, I never thought I'd do that. And it's not as much as I thought it was. And so then, and then I eventually, as I ascended through kind of these friendly competitors and, friends in the industry that I made no money off of, but we had great relationships. I saw one sell his business for $50 million. His name was Richard Cantu. And I was in Bora Bora with him right before he started the talks of selling. And when that happened, I was like, what we're building is that valuable. Like, and I'd never heard of EBITDA multiples and never even thought about selling a business. Who sells a business? What is that? So, I know most of the people that like watch these podcasts have heard of that, but there's these people out there that have no idea what the hell that even means, and that's how I kind of learned about it. And so I just had that appetite to keep readjusting, find out how to do something more about proving to myself that I could do it. But then when I would do it, it'd be like, okay, there's no going back now. I got to go to the next level.
Well, who do you think, were you competing against yourself? Or were you competing against some idealistic version of who you thought you had to be for the world, your spouse, your parent? Like, you have competitive nature. I think that's a requirement and a prerequisite to entrepreneurship. I think you have to be some level of competitive. But who are you competing against when you first started?
In the beginning, I was, in my mind, my dad was an insurance agent. So my dad he never really built it into a business. He was a solo agent. He was house to house. So he would go into houses. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was like, I had seen my dad, go from us being very poor to him making 6 figures in insurance over like a 20-year span, slowly but surely. And so I knew it was possible to make some money in insurance, right? it's one thing knowing it's possible. It's another thing knowing someone that is close to you that did it. But he was always kind of a hard ass guy. So when I entered it, the first person I was competing against was him. I felt like to impress him, I just had to do way more than he did. And then that happened. I kind of, figured out digital marketing in a way that made it very difficult for him to compete with. It's not like necessarily I was a better agent than him. I just was able to figure out a marketing path that led to a much more abundant outreach to me. And by doing that, we dwarfed that production. And so then it became about me, but I would find people that were doing more than me to quote unquote compete against. But these were always like friends of mine. But my thought was always, if they can do it, why can't I do that?
It's interesting because when you look for like business opportunities, most people, I just had a conversation about this morning. Most people look for technological innovation, and they ride a wave, and that's how they become successful. They find something that's never been done before and they try and innovate. But there's another way to be successful, and it's distribution, it's marketing distribution, it's media distribution. And what's so interesting and what so many people can learn from your story is you went into a very old school industry, is basically one of the most legacy, old school, outdated industries you can possibly find yourself in. And a little bit of marketing prowess. It's not like you went to school and you were like you're not like the pick a marketer, a Seth Godin and Neil Patel, these guys that all they do is market all day since they were like 5 years old. A little bit of marketing and a $70 million exit later. That's fascinating. So when did you first understand that media as a form of leverage and distribution was a game changer for you?
So what the origin is, I was actually driving house to house, doing things through old school direct mail way, because you first come in the old school, the old guard, if you will, this is how you do it. So I started doing it that way, and it worked, but it's very slow. And so I was listening to productivity podcasts, and I didn't know anything about marketing. I was like, I'd be on these long drives from house to house. And so I was like, I got to learn something. So I started listening to, sales training. And then it was, and I was like, my sales are good. I don't know if I'm a good salesperson, but I'm closing a very high percentage of these people. I need more people to talk to. So then it was productivity. And then I would listen to the productivity, and it's like, well, yeah, that's great, but I still need more people. And so then eventually it was like, you need marketing. But I didn't, like you said, I wasn't a professional marketer. I had no idea. But I did grow up in what I would consider the Vine era, when all these people got really, really famous through Vine, and then came, the Jake and Logan Pauls and the David Dobrik's and YouTube famous. And I was one of those kids as a teenager making YouTube content. Then I joined the Marine Corps and kind of quit. But that I had we were making it back then. We didn't know the concept of becoming famous off of content online wasn't really there for me. Looking back, I was probably 20 videos away from having some kind of breakout and being some little internet celebrity. But, at the time I wasn't thinking about that. But I understood being a small content creator as a teenager, seeing, these guys that were doing it at the same time become these mega celebrities, that the internet was definitely, social media was definitely the way to go. So about really, I'm close to 11 years ago now when I got into it. So about 11 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm going house to house. I'm watching listening to these productivity podcasts. And eventually I came across a guy who was in life insurance. He wasn't doing the same vertical I was, but very similar. And he was talking about, his name is Jeff Root. He's a good friend of mine now. And Jeff, he lives in the south of France, has a very successful digital brokerage for life. And he was talking at the time about SEO for life insurance. He was popping up many sites where he would have very hyper-specific, he had one that was like selltermlife.com, but there was a lot of websites that he was creating for like diabetes or diabetics that wanted life insurance. And he was hacking these long tail or mid range keywords through pretty easy SEO at the time. And like, it's much more difficult to crack into that now. But at the time he was part of that way. And so I realized like something was going on there. And then he made a recommendation at one point. He was talking about something Russell Brunson said. So that was my intro to Russell Brunson. Early on, russellbrunson.com secrets, expert secrets. I was listening to that, listening to the perfect webinar. And that's how I kind of got into Facebook ads, because Russell was talking a lot back then about Facebook ads. And this was early Facebook monetization, and Facebook works now, but back then it was like, it was like giving cocaine to kids on there. I mean, it's like so, crazy. I mean, you put an ad up and people didn't realize it was an ad because the entire platform had existed for years now with no advertisement. And it didn't say sponsored. And so I made a page that was just Justin Brock. So it wasn't, because back then you couldn't advertise from your profile. So you had to make a page. So I made a page, but I named the page my name. And then I'd run advertisements. And then they would go viral because they're getting pushed into these, into people's feeds because they're ads. And people would share it and like it and comment. And I was telling them to call my cell phone. This is how dumb the ads were. And my cell phone was ringing off the hook. And all it was a dental insurance ad. Because in my eyes, I was like, what? And this is probably part of Russell's pitch, is like, what do people want to buy? And they say, sell them what they want, then sell them what they need. Well, people wanted dental insurance because they wanted their teeth to look and feel good. Like, that's a different type of thing. Nobody wants health insurance until they're sick and dying, and then they need something to pay the bill. Nobody wants life insurance, really. Those are harder sales. People need some of those things, but they didn't necessarily want them. But they wanted dental insurance. It was the vanity product that I sold. And that ad, man, it changed my entire philosophy on the internet, because all of a sudden I'm like, I can throw up an ad and spend, at the time, maybe $25 a day and just get phone call after phone call after phone call. Now, it's not quite as easy anymore, but, everybody, like, if you just try a bunch of stuff, eventually you can find a honey hole like that. And the only thing I didn't realize is that honey hole was going to dry up. And if I knew that, I would have spent a lot more money a lot faster.
Hindsight's always 2020. I mean, but by the way, that is like such a good lesson, because I know a lot of people right now are talking about, for example, like TikTok Shop. People are saying you can make a ton of money on TikTok Shop selling consumer goods. Now, whatever happens in a couple days when maybe it doesn't exist anymore in the US, that remains to be seen. But the point is, can you build a foundation? Yes, but then you have to be smart enough to figure out how to diversify and how to go into different channels, how to explore new things. Like the process of testing and finding new, like, grand slam marketing it's never ending. And I'm sure you've gone through 1,000 different versions of marketing over the course of actually building this business. And even, tomorrow, you're going to see lack of performance or slightly worse performance on one of the million things you're trying right now. And you're going to try a couple new things. It's just business. It's just business. It never ends. I think that you have to keep disrupting and reinventing.
It's kind of like you were talking before this. You talking about the distribution of this, of your platform being on OTT. Well, I talk about OTT all the time. That is a medium we use right now for, like, OTT, over the top television advertisements through different streaming platforms. And it's like television for targeted avatars. So if I'm going out and I'm able to target an age range, and I'm in Medicare, that's always great because, I don't want people that are 25 looking at a Medicare ad, right? But OTT's been great. It's like the best of broadcast television, but like really targeted. But these are, so I became a junkie on advertising. So, I've done and do most of these. I've done radio, broadcast television, OTT, billboard campaigns, lots of different social media, done some on TikTok, done them on LinkedIn. I will try, and I still use direct mail, but we use direct mail now using kind of the Dan Kennedy magnetic marketing method, where we're like trying to send out really high quality pieces that invoke an inbound response, not a bait and switch spammy stuff, because the insurance industry is full of people marketing to either look like a government entity or using a bait and switch campaign. And I'm like, if you just come up with quality marketing and quality messaging, you don't have to do that. And then you build higher lifetime value customers. And that's just been our approach, is like, let's get clever, but not gimmicky, you know?
I mean, I think that, listen, there's people like you that are going to come in and they disrupt. And obviously, I mean, you look at your own success. So if you do prioritize the customer, if you have like a high EQ marketing strategy, if you actually speak to problems they have, no bait and switch bullshit. If somebody does that, it's going to work for a while until it doesn't. Then somebody who actually markets properly is going to come in. They're going to take, they're going to take market share. They're going to clean up because that's what customers want. Customers are smart. Customers aren't stupid. I mean, it's kind of predatory if you're going after old people with these bait and switch tactics for sure. But even then, they're smart. Or someone in their circle of influence or their family is going to be like, hey, this is not exactly what it seems to be. But
yeah. And that's what we've seen in our industry is it's the bait and switch marketing has plummeted the average lifetime value of the customer. Meanwhile, ours remained really high, but they don't understand that, like, people would come in with money into this industry and they'd be like, oh, wow, I can spend $200 and acquire a customer that's worth, $1,500. That's great, and it doesn't, you don't get all that right away, but the lifetime value of that customer, right? And the $1,500 is a realistic lifetime value of the customer if you can keep them happy for a long time, but it's not realistic if they pop on a plan, realize they got bamboozled and hop off 3 months later or 6 months later, then you're actually losing money. And so we've had a lot of these people come in and they think, oh, the customer's worth $1,500. Let me get as many of them as possible. But if you go and do it the wrong way, it's not $1,500, it's $500, $400, $300. And so that's happened where it's kind of lowered the lifetime value on average. But meanwhile, ours has stayed the same. So honestly, it's refreshing to see when you're in business and you see someone come in and do something the wrong way and then get kind of, capitalism penalizes them for it eventually. The free market works if you let it, sometimes they'll be like trying to add some regulation to fix something. And I'm like, if you guys just wait, it's going to fix itself because these people are getting fucking hammered on the back end because they're doing business the wrong way,
Yeah, I think that the way people buy is changing rapidly. I mean, most of the research is done before you even engage with the company now. It's there has to be so much trust built. People are doing people are fact checking. They're not just taking the company's word for it. And that's going to completely, to your point, sort of self-regulate the market because the consumer is so smart. I'm curious. You mentioned something that was interesting. That's a very interesting. I like that Russell Brunson quote idea. What was it? Sell them what they want and then sell them what they need. Why did you not just build a business selling them what they want? Is it too crowded? Like, I mean, you built a business in a very unsexy industry. You could have kept selling dental insurance. I mean, there's companies that do that and probably do very well. So what was the thought process and your thought process, but also help an entrepreneur who's just starting out understand how they should interpret that quote for what they want to pursue?
Yeah. So, I mean, the origin of me interpreting that quote was if someone reaches out or expresses interest in a product that you think, well, okay, I can help with that product, but that's not exactly what I help with, then you just enter that conversation. I think this is where kind of sales comes in. Sales meets marketing. It's like, okay, they wanted dental insurance. So we talked to them about dental insurance. We can absolutely help you with that. This is how that works. By the way, we also help with health insurance, Medicare, and life insurance. Do you have Medicare right now? I was specifically targeting people for dental insurance that were close to aging into Medicare because you get Medicare when you turn 65 and retire and that kind of thing. And a lot of these people would be close to that or on it and not really have an expert that's helped them navigate it. And so when I would sell them the dental insurance, it was the lead in for me to build rapport. And then I could find where they were undercovered, or maybe they were paying too much for something. They didn't realize they had redundant coverages, or they had chosen something based on a limited set of information. So the selling what they need is like finding what they don't even know to ask for. So from a business standpoint, there are things that are kind of commoditized. Like people are going to buy gas. People are going to buy electricity. People are going to buy water, right? There's things that people are just going to buy, and all you got to do is be conveniently there, the most convenient one for them to buy, or have a monopoly on it like utility companies do. But otherwise, you can find the thing that they're going to buy, be conveniently there to get on the phone with them and talk to them about it. It's not bait and switch. I can help you with that. Worst case scenario, I helped you with what you wanted. I might make a smaller margin on that product, but then I have other things that I can help you with, and I just use that dental, we'll call it the dental insurance or whatever that lead in is, I help somebody with this problem. If that cost me $50 to get that customer and I make 200 or 150 or whatever, I'm still profitable, but it's also a profitable lead flow that I can use to be like, let me see if there's also this other thing that I can help you with where my margin is better. And I'm not talking about, it's people that actually need the help. So what we do, like, there very frequently in the way I started is I'd find people that have a standardized Medicare plan. There's supplement plans called, they're like letters, plan F, plan G, plan N, whatever. You'd find the plan that they had, make sure they understood it, but they're standardized. So whether it's Aetna, Mutual of Omaha, Humana, United Healthcare, it's the exact same coverage. No difference in network because they're on Medicare, so they can go to any doctor they want to that takes Medicare. The supplement just pays their out of pocket for them. But you'd have one paying $200 when they could get it for $100. So all we were doing was identifying that they had it and they were paying double what they needed to, and then getting their cost down. So, but they didn't necessarily know that that was possible. So the selling them what they need is finding a way to get on the phone with them to build rapport so that they trust you to talk about the other topics, and then proving to them that there is this other thing that they need to do that they didn't even know. And that's why they're not going to reach out. Like if you just say, if I just was out there all the time saying I help people with, Medicare supplements, they'd be like, well, I got one of those. Well, they didn't know they're paying double the price. So what's the easiest way for me to get on the phone with them? And early on, and we do it different ways now, multiple ways, but dental insurance was just a great way to
it was like a wedge. It was like a wedge in. It was to break the ice. It was to get your foot in the door.
Yep.
There's something to be said about that, because if you are a good entrepreneur, an ethical entrepreneur, you know that the product that you're selling offers tons of value. If you don't care enough about your customer to understand all the other products or services that are kind of adjacent to the main thing or the first thing that you're selling, you don't offer those things, I truly do believe you're doing them a disservice, because they're going to get that from someone else anyways. So they're getting this at a premium from someone else. Maybe they were bamboozled by another company. If you didn't do that, then you're actually doing your own customers a disservice.
Yeah. And that's the kind of conviction when we build a sales team. You want your sales team to have a high conviction about what they do. And the only way to really do that is to train them to do ethical things. Like if you're somebody who had, and I've worked with sales reps that definitely had more easily fracturable psyches where they can really convince themselves that something is good that isn't necessarily good just because it's better for them. I've worked with people that there's a spectrum on that, right? There's the spectrum where somebody's like so good where it's hard for them to even be a salesperson, and it's like they can't even they're buying everything from their framework, and they may be overly cynical or something, right? And then there's the person on the far right side that could sell anybody anything because they're just out to make a buck off everybody. We look for somebody that's on the ethical side of that, but that can also really buy into, like, you have a set of information, a skill set that you can utilize to leave people in a better place than you found them and make a great income doing that. And when you're building a sales team, if you don't have a process and a product or a service that can actually do that, then your sales reps, a lot of them are not going to buy into it. They're going to be like, I don't want to sell this shit. I feel like a scam artist. People want to make money, but most people do not want to make money like fucking people over. They just don't want to do that. A few do,
but not the majority.
No. Everybody wants to make better money, but they want to feel good about the way they're doing it too. If I can feel like I left a wake of people better than me and made a shitload of money doing it, then I can go to bed and sleep like a rock. You know?
Yeah. A big thank you to Indeed for supporting Success Story, because hiring people is one of the hardest things you're ever going to have to do as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as somebody who's trying to build a business. It's important to hire well and find the right person, but it takes so much time and it's so labor intensive because, like most entrepreneurs, you have 1,000 things going on, and there's a good chance that you just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. So how can you find that great, amazing, right fit candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because you don't have to waste time struggling to get your job posts seen on all these other job sites. If you're using Indeed, you can just use their sponsored jobs to help you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps right to the top of the page for relevant candidates, so you can reach out to exactly who you're looking for faster, and the results really speak for themselves. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. And you know what I love most about Indeed? It really just makes hiring so fast, because everything is streamlined in one place. No more juggling multiple platforms or waiting weeks for the right candidate. And how fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed, and listeners of Success Story will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions do apply. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary. A huge thank you to NetSuite for supporting today's episode. Now, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation up, inflation down. Honestly, at this point, you just need a crystal ball. But until we get one, over 41,000 businesses have found the next best thing. They future-proofed their businesses, their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, which is the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, your financial management, your inventory, your HR, all flowing together in one fluid platform. And here's what makes NetSuite different. It gives you one source of truth for your business. You get the visibility and control to make quick, confident decisions while others are guessing. You're working with real-time data, insights, forecasting. You're basically looking into the future of your business with actionable data, whether your company earns a couple million or even hundreds of millions. NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and helps you grab your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, they put together the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. This is the playbook for understanding how to use AI for your business. The guide is free. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. No, I mean, but like sales are like, they're one of the most important positions you can hire in an organization. Most people have a really hard time finding good salespeople or hiring good salespeople, because you've built out a really strong sales org. And now I know you have an opinion and you have sort of some wisdom on this, because just what you just said. What would be the advice for people who are trying to hire great salespeople, who don't have, they're just starting out? They don't know what to look for. They don't know how to gauge the right personality, kind of that balance that you just mentioned. Do you do anything more formal, like a disc profile or like some sort of other test? Or what do you do when you're trying to find the right person?
Yeah, we actually, our team has used ChatGPT, man, to make like a really cool matrices out of the disc assessment. So we have everybody take a very simple paper disc. Then we upload their scores into we put it through a form that populates it on a Google Sheet that powers all these like graphs and stuff. It's just funny. Like, I don't know how useful it is, but it makes us feel really cool. Like we have this like great data. But we do use.
Has it worked out? I mean, has it worked out?
It's certainly worked. I've had people that before I was doing it effectively that I had in service positions that, based on the data we've seen in those disc profiles, that we've moved to sales positions, that they were suffering in service and we were looking at firing them, and they end up being some of your top salespeople, and vice versa. So there's definitely absolutely, and those sales and service are probably like, the most polar opposite. You have your high S personalities are great in service. Your high D, high I are really good in sales. I have my own beliefs on it. The way that we sell, and because we're dealing with, the elderly, we try to go with like high I personalities, that just bubbly, good people, good energy for our salespeople. But high D personalities do really well in sales. I had a video, I did an interview with Sean Mike Kelly, and I said something about hiring like alpha personalities or not. I don't like hiring a lot of them. And then, of course, a lot of people were commenting, well, that's just because you're not alpha enough to alpha the alphas or whatever. And I'm like, Well, it's because they is, and this is a blanket statement. There are certainly some great. I would consider myself. I don't know. I don't want to say I consider myself an alpha because it sounds dumb, but like I would say that when I hire those high D personalities, a significant portion of them are those people I'm talking about with that fracturable psyche, the ones that can kind of manipulate what is good based on what is good for them. And they can be a little bit difficult. They're great. A lot of them are probably great at running a business. They're great at leading a big team. They're great at, whatever. But if you can find a coachable high D personality, somebody that really values you as a mentor, or somebody on your team, some of your managers as a mentor, but they are a highly driven person, they can become one of your apex employees. It's just difficult because high D personalities are sometimes very sure of themselves in a way that they become uncoachable, right? So high I has been a great, thing for us. But then, there's a spectrum. I tell people there's their EQ and IQ, right? So like if they could be a high D personality, but be very stupid. and then he's got a stupid asshole, right? I don't necessarily,
I don't disagree with you, dude. I would never hire somebody that self-labels them, like refers to themselves as an alpha. That to me is like a whole host of psychological issues. If you ever, with a straight face, look at me and you tell me that's how you self-identify, I think you have a lot that you're going through. Like that is a wild fucking statement.
They probably have a lot of emotional issues themselves to like feel the need to say that. You can feel confident in yourself. Like, I'm confident in my abilities. I could lead a team. I could do these things. But I've seen people that have accomplished nothing that call themselves an alpha. And I'm like, I think you mean asshole. Like, I don't mean alpha, but that's just, but I did catch some flack from the self-proclaimed alphas on Instagram when that.
Oh, you hit the red pill community. That's why.
Yeah. And I was like, I was reading a couple of the comments and I was like, if you are such an alpha, would you be commenting on this video about this? Like, I just can't like a super mega alpha would be way too fucking.
A guy who has all the money in the world, all the, whatever relationships, all the, I guess the stereotypical alpha male is all the money, all the women, all the success. Are you really sitting at home on a Saturday night commenting on YouTube? I don't think so, bro. I don't know too many cool people that I look up to that have whatever they have and have it all that are commenting on YouTube on a Saturday night. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I know the wrong.
I feel like everybody that I know that is, what it's funny, like, because you see that type of riffraff and I know who I am and I know what I've accomplished and I know how I feel and how happy I am. And so like, I'm sitting there and they'll be like, you're just not an alpha. And I'm like, I don't even care. I don't know what that means.
I don't think anyone knows it.
Whatever I am is what I want to be because I'm happy. I'm enjoying my life and I'm good.
Amen. Man, listen, you have a beautiful family. You had a $70 million exit. You built a great business. Like, I think that this is kind of all the things that most people aspire to achieve. You also served in the Corps. Like, I mean, there's not too many boxes you don't check. So I think you're good.
Yeah. I got married at 19, so I don't have all the women. I got the one and I got my daughter, and that's all the women I need.
I think that's all anyone needs. That's all anybody needs, dude. I think that's perfect. So let's talk about you found a gap. You found out how marketing sort of leverages that gap in the market. Now you're growing this business. So obviously there's been a lot that you do. There's a lot of different ways to market, a lot of different ways you grow, systems, processes, people, hiring, all of it. You've done all of it. But what are some of the key inflection points, some of the big things that contributed to the growth outside of like running the Facebook ads at the beginning? What were some other major milestones or things that happened?
Yeah. So we talked the marketing side, consistently, like understanding that honey holes dry up. And so when I found them, I would spend money quicker. Even times when I spent money and lost a lot of it, there were some broadcast TV points where I actually did lose a lot in markets that didn't convert the same as other markets. But the increased willingness to do that, I did go and buy some smaller agencies over time, and I packaged them with ours. So that helped me out tremendously. But I think the scaling of the sales team was another one we were talking about, being able to scale internal sales team. And then we actually created a lot of content online for other agents before we had anything to sell those agents, because we weren't recruiting. So there's two ways to do things in our world. You can hire an agent. And so when I would hire an agent, I'd take a brand new agent, somebody that we would get licensed, hire them. All their commissions are assigned to our entity, and we do all the marketing for them. We pay for all their licenses, all that. And that's what we call kind of a career agent. They get a salary plus commission. So their commission is lower, but they're in a controlled environment. And you can take someone that isn't necessarily someone that wanted to be an insurance agent. Like, so I would take people that were like retail store managers, or I have a basketball coach, just different jobs, cops. They would come in and do these sales positions like this, and they're making, double the money they were making before in these other positions. And they're very happy with that. This is more than they ever thought they'd make in a controlled environment, no risk. And so you can do that. And that's what I did first. Or then you could do the brokerage side. And what that means is, like, you're taking on the people that are getting the lion's share of the commission, and you're making a small amount of override off of their production. If they write a policy, if they make $100, you might make 10 or 20. But your job is to recruit them in, train them, motivate them, whatever. So we started creating content online for agents, basically because Gary Vaynerchuk said to. That's why I started doing it. He said, just put content out and see what happens, So we started doing that, and we built this pretty large, especially for our niche, online community. Right now it's 15, it's a Facebook group is where we started. Has 15,400 health insurance agents in there. And that group led into us doing conferences and like mini workshops, and kind of creating that entire value ladder for that group, which eventually became a kind of a value ladder where some of them would ascend to moving their insurance contracts through our organization, where we made override on their production, which makes us invested in their success, right? So that organic social media, organic YouTube actually did play a huge part in some of our evolution as well. But
and now it's like niche community building. That's really what it was.
And I think that's an interesting thing. So a lot of people think to make money on social media, you got to have 1 million followers or whatever. I would venture that, like, you could have 15,000. If they're the right following, you can do really good. I mean, and that could be like one thing. Here's a mark that I missed though, right? So we're marketing direct to consumer to people going on Medicare. I started making the agent community, and I started building YouTube content for them. I think we're like at 100K YouTube subscribers now, but all that content was going out towards insurance agents while we were growing a sales team that marketed direct to consumers. And we would use our direct to consumer efforts to document what was working and what wasn't working for the agents. So it was like we were practicing it and then preaching it versus, just preaching it, which does happen. But where I missed the mark was, at the same time, a friend of mine decided, well, I'm going to make a Facebook group for the consumers. Her Facebook group for the consumers is like 200,000 Medicare beneficiaries in there, and she just gets hella referrals off of this thing. And I didn't even think to do that at the time. I was sitting there making an agent group, and then I went back and tried to make a consumer group. But there's waves, there's timing with stuff. So, like, what I would tell people, like, you remember when Clubhouse popped up, and there were people that were getting famous off of Clubhouse really quick. Right now, Threads is a thing, and is it a big thing? I don't know. But you have to throw Hail Marys into platforms and concepts on platforms when they're new to get that wave, because that Facebook group wave is, I'm not saying it's gone, but like for that exact niche, we're so far ahead of any competitors that it would be difficult to catch up, And now anybody that pops up a health insurance agent Facebook group now, once someone finds their group through an invite, they then say, well, what other groups are they? And then ours, being the biggest, continues to absorb. So every time someone tries to come and compete now, ours just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we probably have 15 to 20 agents a day right now just joining that Facebook group organically.
just keeps compounding. It just keeps compounding. And then eventually some of that revenue just starts to trickle into you because they see the value. I'm curious, if you're trying to build a community, because now you have your friend that built a community of the actual individuals, like you said, the 200,000 person community, that's a different kind of content and different kind of value add. But if you are trying to create a community around professionals in your industry, what's the value add that you give them? Like, what do you give these agents that they not only like to consume the content, but they also want to bring their business over to you? Like, how much do you have to give them?
Yeah. So I think what worked for us in the beginning of the community building was that we didn't have any ask. Like, I would say for a solid year in the beginning when I built that community, and I know that's tough, but that's what Gary Vee was saying. He was totally right on this stuff. For a year, I didn't sell them anything. I didn't ask them to go to an event. I didn't try to recruit them. I just put stuff out there. I just basically and I was still at the time selling insurance. We started it in beginning of 2018. I had a small sales team. We were growing. We were probably, I would say we were grossing maybe a couple million a year at this point, and probably had 5 or 6 employees at the time. And, but I was still selling, I was still like hyperactive, and which also meant that I was living through what they were living through daily, but I was doing it at a higher scale than most of them. And I would just put that out there. Here's what I did today. Here's a snag I ran into. Here's a problem. And then they would start putting their problems up or what they had done. So it would be, they'd put their wins, they'd put their problems. And we were just encouraging everyone to share wins, share problems. And then anytime they had a problem, I was there answering. And so in the beginning, it required an immense amount of time for no payoff from me. But I kind of looked at it as a hobby, man. I was like an outlet. I was working all day, and then in the evening, I'd sit on there and just talk to these people. So instead of watching Netflix, I was on a damn Facebook community every night talking to insurance agents about what we had done that day. And that, it just built a lot of rapport. Now, that Facebook community, I don't post in there personally ever. Now we have a marketing team. I have a couple of videographers. We have a filming day, once a week. I film content. They put it in there, and they pull up popular posts. I do video answers to them. But we still just share practical content of here's what we're doing in marketing. Here's what we're doing. So I think what they're after is just somebody that feels like they're actually going through the same struggles that they have, or they have been through them, being open and transparent and sharing the information ahead of time. And I think that's like Gary Vaynerchuk, the original book was the Thank You Economy. And it was basically like, the economy's changing to do business with people that give them information. They used to, it'd be like, insurance agents would be like, hey, you can sign up for a free consultation. Well, no shit. That's a sales. Nobody's signing up for your free consultation. Tell them, give them the answer to their question. And if they like your answer and they like how you gave it to them, then they're probably going to come back to you for more answers. And eventually you're going to build rapport. And so I think that's really the main thing is people are just looking for transparency ahead of time. And then another thing to notice is you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. Like of that 15,400 agent group, if 3,000 of them, choose to do business with us, I'll make plenty of money. Like I don't need all 15,400 of them. Some of them might think I'm, maybe they don't want to do business with a dude. Maybe they want to do business with a woman. Now, where you really get good is when you have those people. So like if I have a person who has it doesn't have to be gender, but like if somebody has a different personality type than me, and then I partner with them and then I edify them, then some people are going to be drawn to that person, but I'm still connected to them. So I still have a leg into that revenue as well. So instead of being like narcissistic and thinking like everybody should like me, who cares?
Who cares? Who I noticed does this? Well, I mean, we're talking about insurance, but these lessons are very applicable. And now I'm just thinking about other notable people that do this very well. Dave Ramsey does this very well because he hires all these different content creators and he puts them under the Ramsey brand, and they all have their own audiences and they all have their own content style and they all have their own super loyal followings, and he kills it. A lot of people have trouble. I think it's an ego thing. saying, don't just follow me. There's other people in the world that you can listen to as well. But listen, if you don't like Dave Ramsey, you got I think three other guys that I know of that you can go listen to all their content. And it's all kind of adjacent. It's all kind of finance, faith, family style content. But if you don't like his personality, you got 3-4 other options. And all of that, like, make no mistake, all that feeds back to his brand. So it's smart, dude. It's very smart. And just the absolute immense amount of value that you give people and you don't expect anything in return. Like, I'm thinking about, as you're saying this, I'm thinking about maybe I should start a Facebook community for helping people learn how to podcast or solve their podcasting problems, because then they're going to listen to me, who's maybe a little bit more advanced than them a little bit later on in my journey. And I'm not going to get anything out of them immediately, but they're going to become huge fans of, I guess, me. They're going to talk about my show to all their other friends that ask, hey, what other podcasts should I listen to? So you're going to see this trickle down effect eventually.
I'll tell you,
very, very smart.
Yeah. Happen. Like, there's so many things that came back to us. So one thing that started happening is all these agents around that they might be in West Virginia, or they might have been in, I don't know, Milwaukee or wherever they're at. They're like different areas of the country. And they would get a referral somewhere that they weren't licensed. And instead of, we kind of made it known that we were licensed in all 50 states. And instead of getting that license and going through it, they started referring them to us. So now at this point, our agency here, where I have 52 W-2 employees, and 21 of them are agents internally that write business all over the country. And they refer those to us. We probably get a couple hundred just free referrals that are like 100% sign-up rates a year. I mean, it's not tons, but it's, when you do the math on it, if you look at those as all around $1,500 in lifetime value times 200 with no cost per acquisition, it's just like free revenue. But we get that. We created that value ladder where we'll have kind of a free workshop that we'll go around and do these cities. We'll fill them with 50, 75 people, and we just go and add value to them. Then that teeters them into like signing up for our big conference we do each year. As we do one big Medicare event for Medicare focused agents. It's about last year's 1,256 agents there. They'll buy a ticket to that. Even that event is not made to be super profitable because we spend a ton of money on the event. But once they're there, they'll sign up for software products with us. They'll join our hierarchy. They'll come to bigger workshops that we charge $5,000 for. Which those are profitable, very profitable events. And a lot of that too, like once we had the audience and we started getting the audience going, you just look at like the way that other people have set that up. You could look at the Cardone, like the way the Cardones set that up, the way Patrick David set his up, like, oh, and you just talked about Dave Ramsey. I was trying to think of who else does that. Patrick Bet-David's doing that a lot. He's a lot of other brands and pouring into the, like Adam in his office and Vinny and then his CFO, like he's really pushing those other brands to try to grow their presence. So there's several people. I think it's an ascension from the ego of like, I have to be the guy. Like the real guy is the guy that facilitates a lot of other guys and gals that are thought leaders.
Yeah, I think it's a smart play. I mean, that's sort of a little bit more advanced once you've built a community or built an audience or built a following. But I think it's an important thing to think about because you don't have to do it all on your own. If you're trying to build an audience, there's multiple ways to do it, and maybe helping other creators, influencers, industry leaders sort of separate themselves out from the pack and be thought leaders in their own right. Maybe that's just a way to fast track the audience and the community that you're trying to build, which is listen, at the end of the day, I don't care if people discover my show, or I'm sure you don't care where your leads come from. I don't care if it's from me. I don't care if it's from, my mom talking about my show to somebody at the grocery store. I don't care who talks about it. You're looking for the end result. Like that's really it. You want more revenue, more followers, even though it's a little bit of a vanity metric. You want more of X result. Find a way to optimize for X result. There's more than one way to do it. But okay, let's talk about you've scaled this business now. you sold a majority stake for $70 million. You retained 49% of the business. So help me understand what drove you to sell. What was the offer? Who approached you? Why did you? Well, actually, we can start there, then we'll go into all the other stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, I had the friend that had sold his business, and then after I had continued to grow our operation, I continued to have other friends and acquaintances that I would see exit. When an industry, like when certain industries hit this kind of this stride where private equity starts to flow through them, there starts to become an appetite, and it can be a little bit of a domino effect. You'll start to see a lot of businesses partner with PE firms, and then they'll develop a platform company. So in our industry, there's a couple of platform companies, and these are just, the way I view that is they're just companies that buy other organizations, platform them, meaning kind of take some of the redundancies, the legal, the accounting, the IT, whatever, off the table, HR, and they can take smaller to mid-sized businesses and then say, okay, now you can grow without the worry of that. You focus on sales, marketing, whatever it is you do. And so in our business, that was what happened. There were some platform companies that came in. And so some of them started approaching us in the beginning. And then I had a buddy that sold to a carrier. He sold to Humana. And so, and the multiple or the valuation he got when he did it was far beyond what most of these organizations were paying. And so I decided, hey, I want to talk to them. And he's like, yes, you'd be a great fit. And we started talking. And then Humana decided that they weren't buying distribution anymore because that was a big buy that they had just done, and they wanted to get it under control, and they were going to talk later. Well, at that point, I had kind of gotten it. We were 3 years into a Biden administration. It was heavily regulatory to us, and I'd kind of gotten into this in heat mode where I was like, man, I'd really like to entertain an offer at this point. There's a lot of psychology of selling a business. Like, I feel like there probably are some books on it, but I feel like I could write a book on now, like the ups and downs of how many times I was like, I'm screwed. I'm not going to sell this. I'm not dealing with this bullshit, But I went out and found a group that did retained equity buys. They wanted to buy a majority equity, but they did not want to buy 100% of anybody because they wanted their principals to still have skin in the game. So they wanted people that would voluntarily take less for the back end opportunity. And they'd craft the back end opportunity to be very attractive, like more attractive than the front end opportunity. But I wanted to make sure it was a way that I could take enough off the table to like set my family up to make sure, no matter what happens, especially considering we're in a market that is under a little bit of scrutiny from the federal government or, from the Senate Finance Committee and stuff with being private health insurance. You kind of never know. I have my suspicions that we're going to be around for a while because I don't think they have a viable alternative that they can afford currently. But anyway, when that was what I wanted that security, but I wanted to still be in the hunt, in the game, because I enjoy growing the business. The team members that I've built are amazing. They're like family to me. So I wanted to keep going. And I knew that my business wouldn't thrive very well if I was like selling and just hopping out the way some people do. So anyway, when the company that bought into us is called AmeriLife. They're a platform company. They've been around for a long time in our space, but they started doing mergers and acquisitions a few years back. They bought 100 companies now. So they're in our similar space, and they'll probably take on more capital and buy some more now that Trump was elected. And that is it's neither here nor there. That's just the way it is. It's a good sign for our industry right now because it's a little deregulation for private health insurance markets is probably on the horizon.
But why would you not want to get out completely? I mean, you looked for somebody who was looking for somebody to stay on.
Yeah, I had considered doing, like, if the Humana deal would have came through, it was so much money that it was such a high multiple that was being floated at the time. Because it was difference in, so we were at 10x with a 1x earnout, which was probably like right at what I was expecting our industry to be for a company my size. They were offering 15x on a rolling forward 12 for 100% of the company, where that was the floated idea. So is just so much where you'd almost be stupid not to have taken it because it was so many more years of earnings up front. And so anyway, when, I didn't really necessarily want to sell 100%. I enjoyed what I was doing. But, with business, man, it's like 90% of the time I love it. And then 10% of the time I'm like, oh my God, I got to deal with this bullshit, And so it depends on the time they catch you. When you're on one of those 10% days, you'd be like, man, I'll take 6X, just take it.
Yeah.
But you're on when you're on that high, man, most of the time you don't want to do that. You want to keep growing. It's fun.
It's interesting. I know some people that they do it was 15x EBITDA. Correct? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That was going to be theirs on rolling forward 12. So they were projecting your growth rate 12 months in advance and then paying you on that up front.
Damn, dude.
So
listen, you're not hurting.
I ended up getting the 10+1. That publicly traded organization. And the difference is if you get a publicly traded organization that buys you, their accounting is just so much more wonky. It's not the same. So they can technically afford to pay more, but they just get in, their accounting is like 606 accounting. And I don't pretend to even understand all that, but they can do a little bit of voodoo math that I don't quite understand.
I think that's pretty much how Enron got in trouble, but
hey, but they probably bought some companies that guy got out and he didn't do anything wrong. So
no, I'm sure some people made money off of Enron. Yeah, definitely. No, I was just thinking about like all the different opportunities, right? Like you could have taken that 15x with a 12-month and then waited till the non-compete expires and then just start right back up again. Or you can just keep building the thing you're building. I think that it's very personal. Like you mentioned before, there's a lot of emotion and psychology that goes into exits. And it doesn't really matter how much you listen to podcasts or read books. I think that there's a lot of emotion tied up into selling the thing that you basically, it becomes part of your business, becomes part of your identity. So that definitely impacts your judgment. Is there any advice that you give an entrepreneur that is having offers, just some things to think through? Some things, and it doesn't have to be business. It could be family. It could be anything, whatever thoughts that you've had since entertaining exiting.
Yeah. I mean, the big ones that seem maybe too obvious are like, just with anything when you've got to control your emotional range. So like, don't implode a deal over, something you don't like that someone said. Like if you're going through that process and there's multiple lawyers involved and mergers and acquisitions professionals, it can get a little exhausting. There's just so many variables and details, depending on the deal. But once you're in the tens of millions of dollars, like that's not going to flow from, one body to the next without, a lot of scrutiny typically. So, so just kind of take it one stride at a time and decide if it's best for you. It is a very personal decision. If somebody, like people have come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm getting offered this, should I take it? And I'm going to tell you, I'm never going to tell somebody they shouldn't take it. Part of that is because I don't want the blood on my hands of me telling you not to take something, your business imploding, and then being like, Justin Brock talked me out of taking this deal and now I'm broke. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Now, at the same time, that's the advice I give other people because I'm not you, and I did have 100% offers and I did turn those down for retained equity. So my retained equity could plummet and I could look up and be like, man, I'm shorted, I'm shorted 50, 60, 70 million dollars or whatever it is that I could have had, but I'm taking a gamble on myself, right? There's other people that'll take even a bigger gamble where they wouldn't have sold any of their company. And I think you have to look at your business though. You can look at this, framework from the Boston Consulting Group where they talk about the 4 types of businesses. It's the cash cow, the star, the dog, and I can't remember the other one. But there's like 4 categories. You can Google this, but it's a quadrant of based on what market you're in and how big you are as an organization within that market. So if you're the dominant shareholder of the market you're in, and it is a growing market, you're considered a star. If you're not the dominant shareholder, but you're growing in a market that is still growing, you're a cash cow. On the other side of that quadrant, you get markets that are shrinking. Once you're a market that's shrinking and you're the biggest one in the market, this is a shitty company. Like, you should get out of it as soon as possible.
No, I just Googled it. So you have dogs, cash cows, question marks, and stars. Yeah. So dogs are low market share, low market growth. Question marks are low market share, high market growth. Cash cows are high market share, low market growth. And stars are high market share, high market growth. I've never heard of this chart before. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a cool way to look at, like, should I sell? Should I not? Should I go, even if you're going into a new vertical? You know, do I want to go into it? Like, I would. It's not necessarily that you wouldn't go into a vertical that's not growing anymore if you had some sort of, way to grab up a bunch of the existing market share. But I mean, really, if you have a sophisticated or out of the box way to grab market share in a growing market, and that's going to be your biggest opportunity. So when I was looking at it, I started looking at it. Is my market growing, and and how big am I in this market? So I was not the biggest, but I was one of the faster growing ones in our market. And the not to use the term question mark in conjunction with that, but the question mark for me personally was, is our market growing? And fortunately and fortunately, I mean, we're in a market that's heavily tied to federal government contracts. Here with Medicare, there's federal contracts involved, and so it kind of depends on who's elected. Like, I never want to be the guy that's like, I love the feedback from like the Cardones and those guys that say, the government is never going to make or break me. However, it can certainly have impact. And the bigger you get, the more it can, especially if you're participating in a market that's heavily regulated by the federal government, So, and I would assume Grant would agree with that now when you own, billions of dollars worth of apartment buildings. There's clearly he does believe that, because he got involved in politics pretty heavily this last cycle. I think
that is funny. That is very true. Government doesn't impact me, but I'm going to go on the campaign trail. I'm going to start speaking. So maybe the government just makes it a little bit easier, depending on which way it goes.
I'd like to help them get out of my way. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think most business owners inherently are not libertarian in the traditional definition, but libertarian in the definition of, I wish I could just ethically and responsibly build a business without too much heavy-handed government oversight. Now, obviously, I get why regulation exists and protects people, but sometimes just because the government is the government and it moves slower than innovation, and it moves slower than, it moves slower than almost anything, regulatory doesn't catch up with reality, and that's when there's friction. That's when it hurts.
Like a lot of the regulation we were seeing in the industry last year, 2024, they're coming out with regulation based on data from 2019 that any insider would know that data is so antiquated now. Like, it's not relevant to the current landscape, and because it moves so fast. But government officials are, and some of these people are appointed to head up bodies and organizations that they don't really have any experience in that field.
Yeah, that's an issue.
So, yeah, I would say that I'm very much libertarian, because I was definitely a Rand Paul guy. As I've gotten older and pay more taxes and stuff, I get why people get pushed to the right.
Yeah,
but like, I'm genuinely leave me alone, get out of my way, lower taxes, but that definitely, I guess, is I'm probably right-leaning libertarian, but I don't want to, I hate to be too aggressive on any of that, because I don't want to be associated with some of the far right stuff either. Like, it's like,
A big thank you to Indeed for supporting Success Story, because hiring people is one of the hardest things you're ever going to have to do as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as somebody who's trying to build a business. It's important to hire well and find the right person, but it takes so much time and it's so labor intensive because, like most entrepreneurs, you have 1,000 things going on, and there's a good chance that you just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. So how can you find that great, amazing, right fit candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because you don't have to waste time struggling to get your job posts seen on all these other job sites. If you're using Indeed, you can just use their sponsored jobs to help you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps right to the top of the page for relevant candidates, so you can reach out to exactly who you're looking for faster, and the results really speak for themselves. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. And you know what I love most about Indeed? It really just makes hiring so fast, because everything is streamlined in one place. No more juggling multiple platforms or waiting weeks for the right candidate. And how fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed, and listeners of Success Story will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions do apply. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary. A huge thank you to NetSuite for supporting today's episode. Now, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation up, inflation down. Honestly, at this point, you just need a crystal ball. But until we get one, over 41,000 businesses have found the next best thing. They future-proofed their businesses, their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, which is the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, your financial management, your inventory, your HR, all flowing together in one fluid platform. And here's what makes NetSuite different. It gives you one source of truth for your business. You get the visibility and control to make quick, confident decisions while others are guessing. You're working with real-time data, insights, forecasting. You're basically looking into the future of your business with actionable data, whether your company earns a couple million or even hundreds of millions. NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and helps you grab your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, they put together the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. This is the playbook for understanding how to use AI for your business. The guide is free. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. I get it. No, and by the way, I think that's an important point. I think most people who are successful are libertarian, and they're fiscally conservative, and they're socially liberal in the sense that I don't care what you do, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
That's really it. Just leave me and my money and my family alone. That's it.
80% of Americans feel that way. And then now they get us all arguing about the way this 10% feels and the way this 10% feels. And we're all in the middle like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty accurate. Twitter is not representative of the majority of Americans.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, you get Twitter and Reddit. I was reading it.
I don't go down the Reddit hole.
Reddit is crazy. We've really hit it. It's funny because recently the United Healthcare CEO murder. Yeah, that's in our industry. He was and the kind of vitriol that has come out and the eat the rich mentality against like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Like Mark Zuckerberg comes out with this kind of like where he swings back centrist, on free speech and stuff, right? And I'm kind of like
he took a 180.
Yeah,
recently.
And I'm sitting there thinking, hey, good for Mark. But then you read the comments and they're like, the right wing people and the left wing people just both hate him, but for different reasons. And it's like this, and I'm like, if you're that wildly successful, there's just going to be a group of people that just, hate you. And then we saw that with the United Healthcare CEO murder, because I know a lot of people that knew him. This is a guy that grew up in Iowa, farm town, worked his way up as an accountant, graduated valedictorian of a local high school. This was not like Silver Spoon, Rothschild becomes, but that's the way they paint it. And actually the guy that killed him did grow up rich.
I know. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. I researched the CEO. I can't remember what's his name.
Brian Thompson.
Yes.
Yeah.
I researched his background, and it's actually a very humble.
Yeah.
It's very humble upbringing, super humble
American story, like, bootstraps, like normal, like good family, grew up on the farm, becomes valedictorian, becomes a CPA, works as a private accountant, in the private market, gets hired at a, lower mid-range job at United Healthcare, works his way through the ranks by working hard, showing up. And everybody I know that knows him was like, he's just a super nice guy, very relatable. But by position, this kid that grew up rich thinks he's evil. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't get it. And then people celebrate that. And I'm just like, this wild stuff.
No, that was disgusting. Some of the things that I saw.
And I'm not even defending, necessarily, I know that there are problems with private health insurance. Like, I'm absolutely not oblivious to that. Like, I think that some of it's overstated. Like, I know so many people that work at these companies, and the people that work in these companies that are making the claims decisions and stuff are like normal, lower middle class people. They're not sitting there saying, yep, let's kill Mrs. Jones to save money on the claim. Now, is some of that happening by proxy and bad process? I really think it could happen for sure. Like, I'm not I'm not an idiot, but I think that this idea that the billionaires and the millionaires and the powers that be are orchestrating this plot to get the little guy is not really true, man. It's just.
But what happens is that message, social fuels a lot of this. Social media fuels a lot of this. So what happens is somebody sees something that is, this idea just pisses them off, and they echo that idea on Twitter or Reddit or whatever. And because of algorithms and echo chambers, the people that see that idea all kind of think the same way. So then your message and your anger and your vitriol is almost reinforced and in your mind justified, because you think everyone else around you feels the same way. And it's this flywheel of negativity and hate. It's very bad.
That echo chamber gives them the confidence to say things. So now you have people that would have never said that, even though they thought, well, maybe, but then they see somebody else say it, and then now they have this reinforcement of like, well, I can say that too. And then it becomes like nuts.
You're obviously sort of in this industry. I didn't even think to take the conversation there, but maybe you have some ideas, because I don't have any, because I'm so far from this industry. I don't know anything really about fixing it, or obviously a lot of emotion and ideas came to light because of the CEO's murder, because of his murder. Do you have any ideas about what could be done to sort of fix either the actual industry or public perception about the industry? Like, there's obviously something broken, whether or not it's real or it's perception, something's off.
Yeah. No, so there's definitely some shortcomings. It is a highly politicized, and I think that this is important. It's a highly politicized niche, because private health insurance is a very conservative concept. It's like, hey, we believe that bureaucracy and governments are inefficient. We should allow private markets to compete in healthcare to try to drive the cost down, because we're having a budget crisis on Medicare, and so federal Medicare, federal health insurance, and these subsidies, whatever, it's costing us too much. Let's see if we can get health insurance. So that health insurance companies are initially tasked sort of with reducing overall healthcare costs. There's a couple ways to do that. There's not pay as many claims, but the other way, the long-term way, and what's actually being tried to happen is value-based care or health maintenance, which is where you take people and you get earlier diagnoses of symptomatic stuff that you can treat before it becomes a bigger, more expensive issue. And this requires the entire healthcare system to kind of work together, but they're not really working together. You have like a lot of these rural hospitals that will complain that the value-based care system doesn't fit their revenue cycle. So anyway, look, the problem with this is that and I hate to say it this way, because, and this is what I think, I could probably get away with saying it. Politicians can't say it. The American public is wholly unqualified in total to chime in on the concept, because Congress and the evolution of the healthcare industry has made this shit too fucking complicated for most people to really grasp. But the problem is, when you have the federal government saying, hey, let's take initiatives toward value-based care where you get people better earlier and save them money, to save us money, but we're also having to force you into only spending this much per head to be profitable, then there probably are things that are like, where are we losing money? I don't think that there's a lot of claims that are getting denied when people are terminally ill. Now, when I say that, yes, it happens. We're talking about anecdotal things. We're also seeing people, I believe, spread lies or stories online to try to get clicks, because let's say all that's coming out and I want to be a famous TikTok influencer. I could go up with a woe is me story, especially if I'm a young lady and I talk about my mom dying or whatever, and I say it was blah, blah, blah. Very easy to go viral on one of those stories in the heat of all that moment. And then all of a sudden it looks justified. I think a lot of those weren't even true. As a matter of fact, I believe most of the claims denials they come down to a couple things. The guy that killed the United Healthcare CEO, by the way, didn't have United Healthcare, never had it before. Odd. The other thing is a lot of their denials, when they say United Healthcare has 32% denials, that's only using Obamacare as a sector. So it didn't use any Medicare plans. It didn't use Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage. It didn't use private health insurance. It used Obamacare. But then I take the Obamacare. Some of those denials are because they hadn't met their deductible. So it's not a true claim denial. It's you have a $1,000 deductible. We haven't met it yet. Some of those denials were you are not insured here. Well, that shouldn't even be included in the statistic, So when they float this 32% claims denials, it's like we're not even viewing real numbers here.
So if somebody calls United and they've never paid United a dime in their life, United says, yo, you're not a customer. We don't know who you are. And that's considered a claim denial.
So the way it will happen is, let's say you had United, but you changed to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And when you went to the hospital, you forgot that, or somebody else pulled out the card, you were in an emergency, and they gave them an old United card. When they filed a claim, and then United says, well, they're no longer a customer here. They're not a current United Healthcare customer. They filed that at the hospital as a claims denial. So it's a bullshit. And I'm not saying that's all of them, but that is a factor in that 32%.
Yeah, but if you're going to cite data, the data has to be good.
Yeah. And the problem with data is if I'm the Wall Street Journal and I'm writing an article about this, I want the data to be shocking. The media is competing with National Enquirer type headlines. And so they have to come up with shocking shit. And if there isn't enough shocking shit, we have to paraphrase it in a way to make it seem more shocking than maybe it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, listen, that's why I think the healthiest thing the average person can do is just limit themselves to as much traditional media and social media as possible. I don't think it's healthy for most people because you have all these messages just fucking with you.
Yeah. I try. I say try. I don't like the word try, but I turn off as much news as I can. I mean, there's definitely periods where I watch it and I get sucked back in because there are things that are important in the world, but sometimes I wonder if I just was completely oblivious to all social media trends, all the news, all the politics, and just living my life with my family, I'd be happier.
I think most people would be.
Yeah.
I think most people would be. I think that there's the media just creates a ton of fear and anger on average. Okay. I want to really understand a little bit about the exit. I think that's interesting for people that have never gone through one before, because obviously that changes your relationship with money, with wealth. So you sold 49%. I mean, I could talk to you about healthcare all day, but I also want to talk about money. It's also a fun topic. So you sold 51%, you retained 49%. So that was a nice check, a nice wire. How did it feel when that came in? What was the emotion surrounding all of that?
Thankfully, I'd watched a Ryan Pineda interview with Brandon Dawson before talking about it. So I've told several people I was kind of wondering how I would feel, but he had talked about how he felt like, and he kind of had that now what moment. And I did have that, it's not like a really real feeling. So the platform company that bought into us, when they sent the wire, they called me for a congratulatory, like the deal is closed. We've sent the wire, congratulations, call. And so that was kind of like, okay, now what? Well, then I just go on the bank and I mean, it's just what anyone would do. I'm refreshing the bank accounts over and over, just waiting for it to show up. And one time I refresh it, and they did it in 2 wires to a couple of different accounts, just because it was a multiple entity type of transaction. And that first one came through, and it's more money than I'd ever had seen in the bank. And I had a business that was doing volume, so we had we've had a couple $1 million balance in there before, but this was way more than that. And then when that first one hit, I immediately was like, I got to figure out what to do with this money now. Like, where do I put it? Because like all I kept thinking was like, oh my gosh, the FDIC only insures this account up to $240,000, which is this, most people never think about that. But like once you get it and you're like, I got to, something crazy is going to happen. And this was right around the time that all that Silicon Valley bank stuff was going on. So I'm like hyper alert to it. So anyway, so then I started talking to kind of, money managers and different groups to try to get it out, diversify it, put some in real estate syndication, put some in equity index funds, and then I put some in a rich and Tang fund that like puts it in multiple CDs with multiple institutions, so that all of them are backed up to that FDIC insured amount. But anyway, I just kind of went on that mission, and I did splurge a little bit. I went and bought a Lamborghini. I bought a new watch. I did some, stuff that I could have afforded before, but I just never thought, I just didn't want to afford it. Like I was like, I'll do that when I'm like really rich, and, all that stuff was like fun for a minute, but I had that Lamborghini for 5 months and sold it. Like, I just didn't, it was it was fun for a minute. And then the fun wore off of it. It was just not like something
And then you're driving a Lamborghini to Target and you're wondering why.
Yeah, it just seemed like it made me a lot of friends, because like you drive places and people would want to talk to you about it. But then, I just, I don't know, it did change my relationship with money, because you buy these things, and somebody told me the other day, getting it is more fun than having it. So, and that's why we go back to work, right? That's why people that make money, like how many people do you know that are very wealthy that don't work anymore?
None. Like literally zero. And I've interviewed people that have had $100 million plus exits that are on paper billionaires. All of them work harder, even though they'll never have to work again in their life. They could live off the interest. Obviously, you know people very similar to me. And they all work, a lot.
Yeah. That's the thing. And it's because you realize the most gratifying thing you've ever done in your life is creating something, whether that's a product or a team or momentum or an idea, whatever it is.
So you splurged, then you sold some of the things that you bought. And where do you sit now in terms of your relationship with money? Because also another idea is, just because you're a good operator or a good entrepreneur doesn't mean you're a good investor either. And I think that people lose a lot of money when they first have that windfall, when they first get that wire, because they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah. I was so afraid of investing it. I went hyper conservative. I had already read Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, and he'd interviewed, I think it was like Jack Vanguard, who had talked about people can't, like, nobody can time the market, and so, taking money, he had talked about equity index funds. And so I went and put a bunch in equity index, and, I have friends that have sold that was like, oh, I made this in Bitcoin, I made this and that. And I was like, that's great. I'm so happy for you. Like, I'm not going to be jealous because you won, because I avoided the potential loss. So it's funny how aggressive I am when betting on me and my business as things I can control and understand versus investments. And I did do some real estate syndication, which is still a pretty safe bet because it diversified over like apartment buildings and stuff. So everything I've done is, and then, like I said, a bunch of CDs, man. How much more conservative can you get than that?
That's pretty much, that's about as conservative as you can be. What kind of if you look at sort of your portfolio, even being hyper conservative, this is more just a smart investing lesson for people. What kind of returns can you get on your money with a very conservative portfolio, like what you built?
Yeah, extremely conservative. You could, and this is like, and I'm talking cash on cash, 5 to 6%. Very conservative right now, and that's because where CD rates and stuff are right now. Now that could change in the future, but I would say, a lot of people will give you these like other higher numbers, but like real estate syndication, when you look at total return, it's different because you're talking about tax advantages. You're talking about potential for then to refi and cash out refi part of the, there's like all these different variables. You're talking about future exit value, increased rents. So like you might look up one day and be like, oh, that investment did 20%. But what I'm talking about is true cash on cash that you could live off of. And I would say you would be in the 4.5 to 6% range of just basing it off of that. And I know that somebody's going to watch this and be like, that's crazy. You can get 10, 15, 20. I'm not saying you can't get that. I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about truly safe cash on cash, that's where it's really.
Do you live off interest? You don't dip into the principal anymore? Or how have you structured your life?
I'm probably, after that first few months of like taking some trips with the family, I probably spend less. I spend less now than I did the year before I sold the business. I don't know why. I really don't. It's like, I don't really understand. I don't know. It's like it came into focus that like we just decided we wanted to really pile that money up and then there is this thing that happens where there's some things that you want to do that are so extravagantly expensive that you're willing to like live, what would still be a cushy lifestyle, but like to save for the extremely extravagant like experiences, like, renting mega yachts in the Mediterranean for 3 weeks in the summer and stuff. Those are things that, that I don't have enough money to do that, all the time. I don't have yacht ownership money or private travel money everywhere. But if I want to take one badass trip like that every couple of years, all I got to do is not be an idiot the rest of the time,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that, lifestyle creep is a big issue when people start to make that kind of money if they're not smart. And you just have to be careful. You just have, any amount over, say, 15 to 20 million, I would say less than that, you can screw it up pretty easily if you're not careful. But any amount over 15, 20 million, after tax, depending on how much you get taxed, if you invest that properly, you should always be able to live off of the interest from that investment.
Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
My monthly expenses are certainly less than the conservative interest on our. Well, I look at I probably on a typical month, I don't know, we probably spend 35,000 a month. And then, which I know is like out of touch for some people, but like in the grand scheme, it's not but, and then there might be a month where we spend 100, but like, but then I'm always thinking like when you tiptoe into, like when I tiptoe into what is possible, I don't think, because there's a lot of people, like you're saying, lifestyle creep. It's like it can be really expensive to fake being a billionaire. And these people will buy all the watches, all the cars, all the stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, technically you're doing really well, but you're spending so much on extravagant things that your overall solvency of your lifestyle and the peace of mind you have is suffering. And so I'm like, I feel like I have enough now where it's like, why not feel content? Like I'm not content because money isn't a part of the goal anymore. It might be like a score metric, but like, because it's not a part of it, I can be content in what I can afford in my lifestyle while being aggressive toward the pursuits of my future business endeavors, right? Like so that's kind of where my relationship with money is right now. And I'm not saying it won't change again, because it always changes. Like things just change in your psyche and you might, hit different strides. But I'm in this stride right now where I'm enjoying being at home with my dogs and my family, and just not having to worry about money at all. Like that's and this is more speaking to the people that maybe have made money or are going to make money or making a lot and may sell in the future. It's a different, audience. And I hope that there's a part of this audience that sees that and understands that
there is. And I think that I was going to say one thing, like I mentioned, like 15 to 20 million in total exit value or total check size. But the reason why I'm talking about those numbers is because say you had a $10 million exit. I don't want to listen, sometimes no matter what I do as a disclosure, this conversation will seem out of touch. But if you have $10 million and it's taxed, and say you walk away with, I don't know, like say 6 million or something like that, and you do very conservative investment and that like 4%, and you're really only making about $250,000 a year, which is it's great. But the point of this game is to not have to dip into the principal so that you don't have a clock on your money.
Right.
That's really the goal. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to point out why I was saying those numbers.
Right. The goal, like my goal at one point became like potentially the exit. But I wasn't even thinking about the true wealth. And it's funny because all this information's out there in like Napoleon Hill books, like or Robert Kiyosaki or whatever. Like these people have already outlined all this rich dad, poor dad stuff. And like the ultimate wealth person is the one who's the investor that's just living off of the proceeds. But I never really thought about it. I guess I almost stupidly thought me as the business owner I'm the investor, but that's not the investor. Like I'm the driving force behind that business. In my, I might have employees and that do really, really well, but I'm still like this driving force. And true investment is syndication, equity index funds, stock portfolios. Maybe I have some ownership in a business, but I'm not even like managing. I'm just like, I'll just invest in your business and you kick me back the proceeds. But the true investment. And so it has gotten to the point where I have like I do have some superficial goals where, I have superficial goals of like passive income monthly, and I've talked to a lot of guys like Grant and Brandon Dawson and, just Patrick Bet-David. These are all people that have had large exits or just amassed large portfolios. And you hear some of what their passive income is at this point. And it's like, that's what I want. When you hear people that are making a couple, $2 or $3 million a month off of the conservative cash on cash return, you're like, I don't even know that I would spend it, I don't know. It's a weird thing. And it is a superficial, like talking point to the outside looking in. And I'm sure that this is why some of the people are like, eat the rich. But the point is like, you want enough money to be able to like, I want to be able to give money and I want to be able to go places and it's a freedom aspect of like doing things.
It's freedom. It's if something happens, then you can take care of it. If there's emergency medical, you can give back, you can donate. And also I think the inverse idea, you're talking about after the exit, the inverse idea, which I think is a comforting idea, is to have an exit like this. It does not take your whole life. It takes a lot of work and a lot of perseverance and probably more work and time than you think it does. But you were 10 years. You were 10 years to a $70 million exit. And it could have been more.
Yeah.
When you figure shit out, first of all, you only have to figure shit out once. You really don't have to figure it out. I mean, multiple times. You can if you want. Some people, I think most billionaires have a little bit wrong with them because they keep trying to figure out new ideas and make new businesses work. But you really don't. If you figure it out once, you're basically set for life. Most things that you'd ever want to afford, you can afford, right? Not everybody wants to buy an NBA team or the Jets. Like most people are just happy living in a nice place, take care of their family, take care of their parents, go on trips, just comfort. It's not like out of touch. And I think the audience, hopefully my audience in particular, understand how close it can be if they find the right product or the right idea and they put a little bit of work into it. That's really the other side of that.
I actually wanted so badly to like reach this audience one time. Like if you could just get into the heads of the 18 to 25-year-old, because it's a different point of maturity. And there's some of them, some kids are at 18 already thinking about this shit. Some of them is 25, 26, 27 before they start to really think about, what am I going to do with my life? And I just want to find that kid at the, like, I'm taking my life serious, like that point, like, and I embark on that journey. And you just get them to understand that if I can get if I could build a landscaping business that's doing, that gets a yard, an amount of yards and projects where it's doing, let's say $1 million in EBITDA, and I can get, it to 7x or whatever, and I make 7 million, and let's say I keep 75% of it, I got 5.25 million, and then I sell that and I make, let's call it 6% cash on cash. I make 315,000. Let's say I did that. I started when I was 18. I worked for 12 years fully intentionally. At 30 years old, I could sell that. I can make 315,000 a year for the rest of my life. That's not a superficial goal. But there are many people that will work for 25 or 30 years to make 100,000, 150,000. And what I'm trying to tell you is that if you could just program the intention of doing it, it's not like you would know everything right away, because most people that do this don't know everything. They're just constantly learning what they need to take that next step. But if you could learn enough to do that, and you could build it in a simple business model, landscaping, HVAC, these trades or service-based businesses right now are trading at such high amounts. I mean, you know how many people that have crawled around in shit for the last 20 years being a plumber, making 250,000 a year, because plumbers make good money, but now are realizing, so many of them, I've got a freaking business here that I can make, $5, 10, 15, $20 million off of. And these are not superficial amounts if you think about putting that money back and then living off of it. The thing that's really superficial, or I don't know if it's superficial, but it's fucked up, is pretending that you can work a job making $60,000 or $70,000 a year your entire life, pay into Social Security, save up $500,000, and live for 20 years in retirement and be peaceful. It's going to be I talked to these people. I built my entire business talking to these people that were living off of Social Security and had tiny nest eggs. And it's stressful because even if they pay their house off and they pay their cars off, 10 years into retirement, their cars are falling to pieces. They need a new roof. They don't have any money for that shit. And so then either the kids are helping out, which puts an undue strain on them. They're liquidating any investments they have. There's no legacy involved in their life at all. And this is the American condition, because you're told that the pursuit of wealth is too much. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be 70 million, dude. Like, but you could build something in 10 years that makes you more money than your entire 30-year, 40-year career did,
Yeah, I think that's why these conversations are important, because you don't have these conversations when you're going to school. And if you don't come from a family who's entrepreneurial, you kind of look at, I don't want to say you look at like wealth as if it's like for other people, but to a degree you do, because we don't have any millionaires in the family. We don't have any people that exited companies in the family. So I don't even know where to start. Maybe it's not for me. And that's the wrong idea, because it's not that far away. It's not a lifetime of work away. And I think that, when you break it down like that, it conceptually becomes very manageable. You can start to understand, okay, let's get started. Let's figure it out. It doesn't take a Einstein.
Let's say you wanted to be a missionary and you wanted to just witness to people all the time. Spend 18 to 30 building the landscaping company, sell it, and then the interest would finance your family's life while you go and do charity work or whatever you want. So like, it's almost like whatever effect you want to have on the world could be financed by dedicate a decade. That's a good slogan. Let's dedicate a decade to getting my fucking, house in order so that I could spend the rest of my life on adventure or charity or for a cause or whatever, I've actually found that building a business in itself helps a lot of people, because people got to work somewhere. People got to make money. They have to have opportunity. And when you build a business, these billionaires get to a point where nobody likes them, but like in the pursuit, like how many jobs is Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like people have helped the world and they get shit on, but it is what it is, So Consider.
Um, I'm sure that, yeah, I'm sure they're not, I'm sure they're not complaining, but I get it. I get it. Listen, I just hope that some people that are listening to this who, are sitting on the fence, are younger, take these words to heart and they use it as inspiration to go build something incredible and understand that it is not, out of reach. But, yeah. So we spoke about a lot. What did we not go into? I'm thinking now. We spoke about everything that you've achieved after your exit, sort of the journey and the come up. What was the most surprising thing that you experienced or you learned after achieving sort of financial freedom or success? What was something that you didn't expect?
I didn't expect, some of what we're talking about earlier. I didn't expect what my I didn't expect to have such a desire to keep working. Not that I thought that I wouldn't work, but I thought I would feel a little bit more relief in the intention. And then I realized that drive wasn't money. That drive was something else inherent. I didn't expect, I didn't know how to expect for my employees to react or my family, like how different family members would react. And it's actually been overwhelmingly positive. And I think that's a testament to the people that you have a great relationship with, that you've helped, will be overwhelmingly happy for you. If you have people in your life that aren't happy for you, that have that kind of, sentiment, negative sentiment towards it, probably not worthy of even being in your life at all. So I didn't know, I wouldn't say that I didn't expect it, but I didn't know what to expect from family members and employees, but it's been overwhelmingly positive. But I think that is because I have spent a lot of time, especially with my team members and people that work for me. I've always tried to help them anytime they need help. I've always tried to be there financially for them and stuff. And so I think I've kind of like earned that goodwill with them that, good for JB. I know he's always got my back. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Last thought on this: when you do get that check and now you're minority shareholder in the business, you're minority owner, how did you set your company up, your team up, so that there wouldn't be any negative after you give up control? Because that's the biggest concern that people have. It's if I built this baby from scratch, now someone else is running the ship, I don't have control over what they do.
So I was very thankful that I had friends that I had built in the industry that had sold to this particular platform company or before me. And I was well aware that as long as you were growing and making money and not doing anything criminal, that they would stay out of your way. There have been I've learned a lot. I mean, man, you want to get a PhD in high level accounting, sell a business, man. Because we had to convert from cash to accrual accounting. I've learned how compound annual growth rates work. I had a great lawyer on my side, and so we were just reading through tons and tons of that. But on the back end, I've learned a lot about the conversion of accrual accounting, and I've learned a lot about things like working capital contributions. It's just these concepts that at the time you're going through it and you're just whatever. And then later on, you're like, okay, had I known that, I would have done this differently, or glad I didn't do that. Now that I understand this, there's a lot of thoughts like that. But they haven't, thankfully, they still let me steer the ship. There's certain things, they have a legal department. So there's things that I used to just willy nilly sign off on that now they want to run through a legal team, which probably protects me, but it is a little bit slower than I'm used to. Because when you're running a small and rapid growing business that you're at the helm of and you're the ultimate decision maker, you can make decisions quick and you can move fast and swift. And it's kind of like we're still a really fast little tugboat, but we have a chain connected to a huge barge, and we're kind of having to get permission to unleash that chain every now and then. So,
no, that's good, and that's also very smart. I mean, if you are selling, I mean, I think the the quote is the best companies don't get sold, they get bought, right? And if you position yourself properly so that you do have people that are interested in you, do your due diligence as the seller, as the entrepreneur, and choose somebody who you've checked their references. They're not going to destroy your company. They're not going to destroy the livelihoods of your employees. Like, this is a very important idea that if you get too excited about selling and you don't do your research, like, these are real things that can happen.
Yeah.
So just be aware of them.
He told me when he sold that that selling your business is a lot like sending a kid off to college. And so, and he sold 100%. So, but the same concept, even in my deal, is like there's such an emotional attachment to what you built that even if you sell 100%, you do not want to sell it to someone that's going to ruin it, because these are people that you care about work there, or there should be. That's everybody I know that's built a business cares about the people that work at their business. So you just don't want anything bad to happen to it.
Of course. Okay. Where can people connect with you? What do you want people to know? In terms of an entrepreneur, where can they consume more content? Where can they learn more about what you're doing? If you're in the industry and they want to work with you, where do they go? So give people a couple reference points.
Yeah. I mean, one of the main places we're trying to grow is instagram.com/ the Justin Brock, or at the Justin Brock is what I should have said. youtube.com / Justin Brock, and then just straight to justinbrock.com.
Okay, cool. And when they go there, what kind of content are they going to see? What type of education do you put out?
Yeah, we put a lot of stuff like on YouTube right now. Some of it is very specific to just business owners selling business, that we're trying to be more broad, not just completely niched down for the insurance industry. But we do a lot of insurance industry stuff there too, because that's where a lot of our audience is comprised of. Instagram, same thing. We do try to put up some funny stuff as well to keep it lighthearted. But that's what we're doing. It's very business and in insurance industry mix, 50-50.
Amazing. Last question I like to ask. So you've had, great life, great career. You built an incredible business. If you had to distill some of the most important lessons that you've learned over your life, and the lens that I try and put this through is, if you can only pass this one lesson on to your kids, because that's the most important lesson that you've ever learned, what would that lesson be?
It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's been the big thing, guiding light for me when I got out of the Marine Corps and came into the industry. My dad told me that, and it has proven true. Now I try to have an adaptation to that. I say it's a marathon, not a sprint, but you can be a Kenyan in the marathon. You can run it as a pace setter and run it really fast. Just know that you're having to set a pace where you can finish a long race. I have many people that I work with that really burn themselves out quick trying to, sprint to the finish line, and not knowing the compounding effort of daily time and pressure. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not a cop-out to relax. It's just understanding that, your work in quantity of days, over time, like every day, making progress, one foot in front of the other, is making much bigger, grand, strides towards a goal than you can possibly fathom within that individual day. Every little thing that we do is really getting us so much further, because it's compounding effort.